Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy. So what do you got for us today, Claire?
Today, we're headed to Cowtown, or where the West begins. Any guesses?
It's gonna be one of them.
Fort Worth, Texas. You're not a good guesser.
Fuck you.
You didn't know Fort Worth, Texas was Cowtown?
No, why would I know that?
Because Dave's told you.
Okay, and our high school was Calpi High. Turns out everybody wants to claim the cattle. I would have guessed like Montana was where I was gonna go.
You think the West began in Montana?
I wouldn't have thought the West began in Texas. They seem like they're all the way over there.
West.
All right.
I thought you got chopped off for a second.
Anyway.
Fort Worth, Texas is where we're headed in 1985.
All right.
So we're going to start out on a Thursday in June of 85. 17-year-old Allen Bolden is working as a lifeguard and a swim instructor at the Fort Worth Boys Club for at-risk youths.
Sounds hazardous. For some pink eye.
We swim different.
No. You tell me right now that if it's for the youth, for boys specifically, who are at risk, you're telling me you think their hygiene's up to par? Because my kids aren't at risk, and I can tell you my boys, you got to force the shower in.
Yeah, but they're going in the pool. I feel like they're just going to add a touch more chlorine.
And if not,
I think more at risk for ear infections.
They're going to be more at risk of the pink eye. Some dirty, crusty boys bathing in a pool. It's a community bath. Gross. Continue.
Yeah. Anyhow, she's got problems related to public pools, apparently. She says that for the bathing. Anyway.
No, I don't.
So.
Not even close.
Andrea, shut up! A little about
That's
Allen.
not necessary.
It clearly is. A little about Allen. He's 6 foot and about 155 pounds. So
tall and scrawny.
Yep. And now he just graduated high school in May, and although he had tried every sport out there, for whatever reason, he falls in love with swimming. Now, I feel like it's nothing like those Texas summers to motivate somebody to be in the water rather than on the field.
Was he the lifeguard, or he's just going to the pool?
So he was working there as the lifeguard.
He liked to see them Speedos.
He's also the swim instructor.
Yep, called it.
He loves the pool. He loves to swim. You have issues today. I didn't realize they ranneth so deep. Anyway, so he loves the water. Allen would head for swim practice twice a day, every day.
I bet he
for
did.
Years.
Oh, yeah.
Now, he was such an accomplished swimmer that by the time he's 14, he ranks in the nation in the top 16th.
Damn.
And eventually becoming his swim team captain. And now as an honor roll student, when he graduated in May, he was in the top 10 of his class. He would get an athletic scholarship to attend Texas Christian University. And his goal was to one day be a sports medicine doctor and then ideally end up being on the Olympic swim team. But basically for 17, he was incredibly driven. He had a path. I mean, he's going good places, you would think.
That's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah. So, and then now, mind you, for his first job, Allen was working at that youth center that summer because it also freed up his weekends so he could still do swim competitions. On the mornings before he would head to work at the youth center, he would head to another club and teach swim lessons at that club. So, just a spectacular, young, driven man. Again, zero issues with him, and just a feller who got along with everyone and had a very strong work ethic and understood a commitment. An all-American boy, if you will.
Yeah. I feel like you just set it up that he's going to be the victim, and I was making fun of him, you jackass.
Allen was leaving work one day and was asked for a ride home by 18-year-old Juan Soria and 19-year-old Mike Lagunas.
No.
Now, Allen, being the nice, good young man that he is, agrees to give him a ride home. Now, Juan, he's a bit of a troublemaker. He's got a background of having been in trouble just a few weeks earlier for vandalizing a church. He's been in trouble for stealing teachers' credit cards and being drunk in public. Now, mind you, he's only 18.
I was about to say, what? He's a child still.
Well, technically, they're both adults, but
Yeah, whatever.
in the scheme of things,
Let's face it, if anybody out there says an 18-year-old is an adult, they haven't been around too many adults, because an 18-year-old is a damn child. They're just legally an adult.
right. But, well, in the scheme of things, Alan is more of an adult between these three, anyhow. Now, Mary Canals, who also works at the youth center with Alan, happens to see the two men approach Alan and them get into the car with him. And she just got a funny feeling because it looked odd because they were clearly too old to be a part of the youth center. They didn't work there, and she just said they had a look that made her feel uneasy. So that's why she took such particular interest in like just peeking over and notating what she saw.
Hey, I have a question.
Hey,
And I'm not being a smartass, okay? There's an age restriction on a youth center?
well, I feel like once you turn 18, you're no longer a youth.
Man. All right.
So think of it like, so since it's the summer, I was thinking of it like, it's still for at risk youngins, but it's like summer camp kind of thing, like, like not daycare, but like it's for the tweens, the 10, 11, 12-year olds, that 18 and 19, they should be out being gainfully employed, not playing in the pool.
True.
But anyway, so Mary would describe them as two Hispanic males having a look like break or like dressed like they look like break dancers with slick black hair, roughly about 5'5" tall. So shorter than Alan, but I mean, just didn't understand why they were there and what the whole scenario was. But Alan would be at work the next day, and they would chit chat about how Alan was sore from heading to swim practice the day before, and how he wasn't planning on headed to the field trip on Saturday that the boys' club was doing. Now, Mary wouldn't ask about the two guys that got in his car the day before, because even though it gave her the weird vibes that Alan was at work the next day. So
seemed fine, yeah.
Yeah. So the end of that day would be just like the day before. Alan would leave the youth center to head to the university for swim practice, just like he had the day before. Now he's in his dad's car because his car's in the shop for repairs, which I feel like is not abnormal for when you got a young driver. But I don't know what the repairs were, if it was like a tree was too close.
That curb jumped out.
But just like the day before, Juan and Mike are there, wanting a ride home again. But this time, when they get in the car, Mike pulls an inoperable 22 caliber gun and holds it to Alan's head.
Wait, it's inoperable?
Yeah, Alan doesn't know it's inoperable. I don't know what makes it inoperable.
The bullets are in backwards.
Probably so. They probably don't have bullets, but that would be, I feel like, described as an unloaded gun. But for whatever reason, it's an inoperable 22 caliber handgun.
That's why I said they're in backwards. It's loaded, just can't work.
Yeah, well, loaded is just this person's an idiot, and I don't even think that's possible to do. But anyway, well, now mind you, Alan doesn't know that the gun's inoperable. So when they force him to drive out to a secluded area under a bridge, Alan complies. And now once they get there, the two would make Alan exit the vehicle. Mike picks up this giant baby boulder.
Hey, that sounds like an oxymoron, by the way. A giant baby boulder. Really? Pick one. A big rock.
If I say I pick up a rock, then you're going to be like, was it a big rock? A little rock? A big rock. A big rock. A giant rock. The size of a
skull?
A shrunken bowler. A skull crusher rock. He picks up a big rock, okay? He clubs him upside the head hard enough to knock him to the ground.
Calm down.
When Alan's on the ground, Juan whips out his knife and begins stabbing Alan in the soft spot to the back of his head and his neck.
He's not supposed to have a soft spot no more. That goes the way it likes to.
Well, that soft spot right to the base of your skull, it's soft. I hate to tell you.
All right.
Anyway, so he wasn't stabbing him directly in the skull kind of thing. It's like
the base of his skull.
Where your skull meets your spine. At the base of, you're right, that soft spot. You're so squirrely today.
I'm not squirrely. You're squirrely.
Anyway, naturally, A couple knife stabs to the base of your neck will kill you, and that is exactly what happens to Alan.
Poor Alan.
Now, Juan and Mike are now super thrilled with themselves since, now they're badass serial killers. So
What?
they're morons.
Do they know that it takes more than one?
They're all hyped up, and I feel like they were beating their chests looking like gorillas.
What's
And
with you and finding the cases of the menfolk that are like all about themselves?
I don't know. I'm just telling you that's how I envisioned it because they were super pumped up after they just killed Alan. So they take Alan's dad's car. They drive back to the boys' club and brag to some of their friends about what they just did. They even go as far to pick up 3 of their friends who are between the ages of 14 and 15, 2 boys and a girl. I feel like that's part of the reason they were at the youth center is because even though they're older, somehow, and I don't know if they're related or how they know these other kids of just maybe neighborhood kids. I don't know.
They all go to school together. It's just these two failed a lot.
Well, they're so thrilled about what they did and they pick up these 3. So now it's 5 of them in this car driving around, bragging about what they did. And they convince the 3 tweens that they pick up to take the inoperable 22 gun to go rob an ice cream truck so that way they can get some gas money so they can get out of town. Because their plan is they're going to head to Del Rio, which is a border town near Mexico, and also happens to be where Juan had once lived, so he's familiar with the area. But they didn't think this whole plan through prior to the murderings, that they didn't have money to get there.
Very short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
Seems very childish.
And can I just throw in there, I think it's wildly dangerous to go around committing crimes with an inoperable gun. Not to suggest people commit crimes at all, but I would think if you're going to wield a weapon at all, then you should be prepared to use it. And if it's not functioning, why would you even have it? Like, that's a serious bluff, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, the 3 tweens go and rob this ice cream truck, and naturally, the ice cream truck feller does indeed get robbed, and they hand the money over to Juan and Mike. Now, I'm sure they were just thrilled to be a part of this hyped up, cool gang that they're starting, and the plan to drive out of town, all the things. Now, they pile in the car and head towards Del Rio, which is about a 6-hour drive. The big plan was they'd get there, they'd sell Alan's dad's car for $5,000.
What year is this? 85?
Yeah.
Is it a brand new car?
Andrew, would you put a brand new car with a teenage driver? No. It was an Oldsmobile Tornado.
But it was his dad's car. His car was in the shop. I don't know what his dad's value is.
Yeah, but you wouldn't put him in a brand new nothing. Anyway, it was an Oldsmobile Tornado. Did that clear it up for you?
I guess.
Because I didn't know what the hell it was.
No, I don't know.
I was like, I don't even know what an Oldsmobile Tornado looks like. It sounds windy.
I'm still stuck on the $5,000 used car in 85 is a lot.
Well, regardless, it seemed odd anyway because, okay, so now you have a lot of money and no transportation. So what's the plan now, fellers?
Or how about no title to give when you sell the car? Good luck selling it.
Well, again, they're the 5, they head out of town. Now, mind you, they're off doing that, right? Alan's parents get the sense that something had gone horribly wrong when Alan doesn't make it to his swim practice that's supposed to start at 6 that Friday night, nor did he come home, neither of which were typical behaviors of Alan. Now, the police department and people who didn't know Alan would try to settle his parents' worries and fears by saying he's just probably out gallivanting around like teens do with it. I mean, he's got a car, his freedom, and not to be too worried about it because he'll pop up anytime and he'll be fine. Well, Alan's parents go with their gut when it rolls around to Saturday morning and there's no sign, word, or anything from Alan. And if anything would have changed, she would have at least called them, but to not have any sign of him was
the next day. Yeah.
Well, because people were saying he's probably going to roll in late Friday night or the wee hours of Saturday morning. That's what teens do on a Friday night.
I'd say after my kid's been missing for a day.
So this was Friday night when he doesn't make it to swim practice. So they're
at
already
6 in the evening. Yeah.
Well, they already call the police, and the police are telling him like it's a teen. It's a Friday night. He's probably going to roll in at like the wee hours of Saturday morning, late Friday night. So that's what teens do. He's got a driver's license. It wasn't alarming to authorities.
Hey, you know what's funny is the commercial or that ad that we always reference, that commercial of,
It's
it's 10
10
o'clock,
p.m. Where
where
are
your
your
kids are.
children? Yeah.
But when the police are notified that my kid is missing and not where they should be, the police are like, oh, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like it's 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. I don't know what time they first called, but that's why they're told, like, just wait it out. He's probably going to come in late tonight. You're going to be mad. He's going to be in trouble. That whole song and dance. But when Saturday morning rolls around and there's still no sign of Alan, I mean, they report him officially missing. Now, then when Monday rolls around and there is still nothing, like that, there's no car, there's no Alan, there's no sightings of Alan, what the fuck? So at that point, his parents are fearing that Alan's dead since they haven't heard anything.
That's awful.
And I'm sure the hours felt like days for their family, and the pain of uncertainty and just having so many questions going unanswered. It makes me feel bad for the people who still don't have answers in other missing person cases, but
Yeah.
I can only imagine. And I told you a little bit about Alan. He was a good kid.
Yeah,
Like,
you fucker. You made me sit here and
talk shit about him.
talk shit and make
That'll teach
obnoxious
you.
comments.
You never know who I'm going to introduce you to.
I'm just going to be quiet from now on.
That's what I tried to get you to do in the beginning, if you recall. Anyway, so now these morons make it to back to the car full of idiots. They make it to Del Rio and would be joyriding when they'd be pulled over for speeding.
Smart.
Now, Mike and Juan would give the police officer fake names and addresses, as you've seen in all the cop shows where people think they can get by with that one. Now, the officer will go back to his car, run that information, and run the tags when he realizes it comes back as stolen. Now, mind you, this is just a couple days after Alan's murder.
Have they found his body yet? They haven't.
No, that's why his parents, they don't know anything. They don't know where the car is. That's why it was reported as stolen. Because even if Alan was just joyriding on his own, they need to find out where this boy's at.
Yeah.
And especially when he doesn't show up for work Monday. Not that he has ever just disappeared for a weekend, but he's a very responsible, committed to his responsibilities, like all the things that he's dead. Because this isn't like Alan. Like something is horribly wrong and everyone is right.
It's sad.
So they take everybody in the car into custody, and Juan folds like a wet paper bag and confesses to not only killing Alan, but that he had planned it because he wanted his car.
What?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even his car.
Well, he wanted a car. Alan was an easy victim because he was a 17-year-old kid that he figured he could steal his car. But he also tells him where they could find Alan's body back in Fort Worth.
Why wouldn't they just steal the car?
I don't know, because these two are idiots. Now, if you're curious if this is some sort of gang-associated violence, it's not. Just bad apples that managed to find each other and made perpetually bad decisions.
It's amazing that
they find each other like magnets.
Yeah. It's wildly impressive.
Although I kind of also did like a little thing, like a bit of a head tilt of it is a youth center for at-risk youths, and I am aware that it's supposed to keep them out of trouble, but for the ones that just lurk around the outside,
they got kicked out when they turned 18 and they felt rejected, so they just stood outside and waited, and they were like, hey, how old are you? Oh, yeah, you're about to be kicked out, too. Just come join us now.
Well, I feel like if it's in a bad neighborhood, like, the risk is high anyway that they're going to be falling into a criminal path. But then you're kind of
collecting them all together, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I realize the name is in keeping them out of trouble and having them in a good place rather than on the street somewhere else. But it does seem like this would be a bad area, and they're aware that they're at risk. Anyway, Mike would plead guilty to aggravated kidnapping and be sentenced to 45 years.
Yikes.
Now, Juan's trial, because mind you, Juan was the one who did all the stabbing. That I feel like Mike, when he smacked him in the head with the rock, maybe the plan was supposed to be we drive off without it, or without doing any murdering, because if they drive out to the middle of nowhere, ditch him, thump him in the head with a rock, and tear out of there,
they can get pretty far before they get caught, yeah.
Right. So Juan's trial would start it was almost 1 year exactly after the discovery of Allen's body, which was pretty wild that it started like that. But anyway, his trial would last for 6 days. Now, Juan would be convicted of capital murder. Now to the sentencing.
Death.
So the jury would have to decide between the death penalty
Here, here.
and life in prison. We've seen plenty of cases where they struggle with taking somebody who's fairly young and tossing them into a cell and throwing away the key. But unfortunately, at this time, a life sentence on a capital murder would allow parole after 20 years. So they also had to weigh that as you've got somebody who did a real bad thing to a real good person, and is it fair to let him out in 20 years?
Nope.
But that's what they had to decide between. Now, prosecution would urge the death penalty because at no time had Juan showed any remorse for killing Allen. Now, Allen's attorney would say, no, that's not true. He's real extra sorry, and he shouldn't get the death penalty because he's not a threat to society.
What?
And his criminal history was just minor brushes with the law. Pretty much any teenager would be doing that.
No, that feller needs to move away from wherever he lives because that's not normal teenage behavior.
Well, up until the murder and like the stealing credit cards from his teachers, the drunk
That's
in
not
public.
normal.
It was just no normal
That's
teen
not
brushes
normal.
with laws.
No, that is absolutely okay. Again, I go with my other. I've said this too many times before. Let his lawyer meet him in a dark alley and let's see if it's just normal teenage behavior. Okay?
Well, his attorney was trying to paint it as up until that point, he really wasn't doing violent things, and this is just one whoopsie, and he won't do it again.
Lies.
So the jury would side with you and said, we're going to go with the death penalty for this bad apple. Now, when the sentence was read, his mother and other family members would be in tears. His brother would complain that it wasn't fair and that he was brought to trial barely a year after his arrest, and most capital trials go 2 years or more before they go to trial, and that this sentence wasn't fair based on his criminal history, and it's just stuff kids do.
No. I don't know what's going on in that area that they think that stealing credit cards from your teachers and doing all the other bullshit that he's doing is normal kid behavior. It's not kid behavior. He's over 18 at this point and he should know better. And it's not a whoopsie that you didn't accidentally fall and stab him repeatedly in the back of the head. No, that's not a whoopsie.
And this wasn't like he was overtaken with the idea of stealing his car. He planned it.
Not very well.
He calculated it. Yeah, not very well, because he should have foreseen that cars take gas.
He should have stayed in the school for longer.
But I did the whole, well, he's not a kid anymore, and time won't change that not only did he do it, he planned it, he said that he did it, and it was fucked up.
Yeah.
Somebody who the day before also gave him a ride to wherever he needed. Somebody who was treating him with kindness. It's not like he was rude or disrespectful in any sort of way. Allen did not deserve what happened to him.
No, not at all.
Not that anyone does deserve to get murdered, but
it's different because okay, I know I'm gonna get some hate on this one, but if it was two little pieces of shit like this feller that were
gangbangers,
yeah, then they absolutely deserve whatever they get. But Allen was literally trying to do the right thing and help. He was trying to help. He was trying to help the children in the youth center. He was trying to help the adults hanging around outside the youth center.
Right.
No.
That's why I said he was just an incredible person, and the loss of him in this world.
You suck, by the way.
The loss is horrible on this
one.
You suck. Now, on a funnier side note, this one I almost told you before this case because I laughed at it. Was just hilarious. So when the jury was deliberating, you know how that can take hours and everything. And depending on when the last day ends, if it's like at 4 or 5 o'clock, they deliberate from then, and it can go.
Did you say
deliberate? So if while they're deliberating and it goes for 6 hours, well, if they started at 5, I mean, it's going to go into the evening. Right. Well, one of the jurors' husbands shows up to court demanding that they release his wife because he wants her home.
He's hungry.
That's what I was just like, he's hungry. He expected a meal. Anyway, he gets the unfortunate news that they would not be releasing her to go home early. So he stomps out of the courtroom in such a huff that he goes down the hallway and slams the glass door so hard that it cracked into several pieces, which prompts his arrest. And he's charged with criminal mischief and spends the night in jail.
Oh, that'll learn him.
I thought that was hilarious. I need her home now. Yeah, no, that's not how this works.
He was hangry and horny.
Probably. So now we'll fast forward to 2 years after Allen's murder in 1987. The Allen Bolden Pool in Vandergrift Park was opened in his honor, which I think was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, it is still one of the most popular aquatic locations in the area. It was also the first campus type center of its kind. It sits on 5 acres of manicured open space for people to like just lounge around. It has pools for lap swimming and then like a family friendly laid back pool area.
Who set that up? Do you know?
The city.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Now, they had a 25th anniversary bash in 2012 where hundreds of people showed up. Now, mind you, I realize some of that was just because of pools opening up or like celebrating a thing. But there were also people there to honor Allen's memory, and I thought that was also pretty cool. And Allen's dad, Ed, was blown away by the city's effort to not only honor his son with the opening of it, but the fact that they did a 25th anniversary blowout thing for him. That it's just, they're making sure he wasn't forgotten.
Yeah.
And the tribute, he said, couldn't be more fitting for Allen. And I agree, because it's just like somebody who loved the water so much, and that was what he was building his life around. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But Allen also had a younger brother. He was like 3 years younger than Allen.
That sucks for him.
I know. He has a whole lot on his shoulders, and I hope he grew up to be a sports medicine doctor or something. But he would grow up to be a lifeguard at that pool, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's kind of sad for him, though, because he's literally living in his brother's shadow.
Fucking, it's a humongous shadow. Yeah. Boulder.
Now that's a boulder.
On
that ain't no baby boulder. That is a boulder. That is a mountain.
Yeah, he does. Because I was like, ugh, that's. I feel bad for Kevin.
If his brother wasn't murdered, he already had huge shoes to fill. But then to have him brutally murdered, that is not only heartbreaking, but that's a lot to live up to.
Yeah. So naturally, in capital punishment cases, they automatically have an appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1994, on that appeal, Juan's death sentence would be overturned based on insufficient evidence.
What?
Well, it's one of those, they don't have the knife, so they can't say that Juan did it. They just have to go off of he admitted.
Is he
to
out? I'm hanging up on you if he's out.
So 2 years later, they would go, we changed our mind. We're going to reinstate that death penalty.
Oh, good.
So, not surprising, but while this piece of garbage sat on death row, he would self-mutilate and attempt suicide. Now, as his execution date approached, he would get a visit from a 78-year-old minister, William Paul Westbrook, in June 2000.
Does he kill the minister?
Now, in response to his visitor, Juan would grab hold of the minister's arm, yank it into his cell, and whip out a razor blade tool weapon thing that he had made, and starts repeatedly slashing the minister. He nearly chops off this man's arm. Mind you, after he does that to the poor guy, he does recover, by the way, and have his arm. But they toss Juan into a psychiatric unit after that. Now, Juan would try another appeal, this time on the basis that there weren't any Hispanics on his jury, so he didn't have a jury of his peers. The court system rejected that. He would then try for clemency, but that was rejected also with an 18-0 vote. Now, Juan would try to commit suicide one last time before an execution date approached. But all that practice, and he just still couldn't get it right, so he's still alive.
He ain't a good planner.
He's not. So July would roll around, and it's the big day everyone's been waiting for. They would bring in Juan. He would be a long-haired, bearded feller, since they didn't trust the razor near him after the whole minister person thing. Which I was like, How many razors do they let him have? I feel like let them all be hairy. I feel like then I guess you'd have bouts of head lice or something. I don't know.
And the smell.
But he would be executed and pronounced dead at 6:27 p.m. On July 26, 2000 at 33 years old. He would be the 26th person removed from this world by Texas that year, and I laugh because it was only July. But Mike would be released in 2007, and unfortunately for his ass, he'd find his way back to jail over drug charges, so I don't feel like he's figured out how to survive in this world without being in prison. Now, if you were curious about the youngins that were in the car when they got pulled over in Del Rio, they never released their names, and since they weren't a part of Allen's murder in any way, shape, or form, not a witness, none of that, they were packed up and sent back home. So
I hope it was enough of a scare
I
to
hope so.
straighten their lives out.
But I wasn't sure if you would be curious about them, but that's where they headed.
Damn. I can't believe you let me go on a tangent.
Yeah, you were a pretty big asshole in the beginning. I hope you feel real bad because Alan was a spectacular individual, and I'm sad for the loss of that community because that boy would have done great things. There's not too many. Actually, I don't know any teen that for years, like you're talking when he was 14, he was getting up before school to go practice and then after school practice. Like,
He was dedicated.
yeah, he was going to be on the Olympic swim team. Like, he was going to make that happen.
Yeah, you suck. Which, by the way, that little punk's brother saying that
Oh,
his murder trial taking less than a year.
it went too fast.
Yeah, dude, his brother has the right to a speedy trial. It's literally in their rights that he is entitled to a speedy trial. He has to sign that away in order for it to be drug out. And quite frankly, if he was innocent, then that would suck if it's drug out over 3-4 years and then he's found not guilty. You know what I mean?
So part of the things that they were arguing is why he wasn't being charged with a lesser charge, that
because
instead he was charged with capital
someone.
murder. So his problem with his confession was it wasn't like they planned to steal the car and then he murdered him and that wasn't part of the plan. He planned this whole thing.
That's sick.
So yeah, I get that. Oh, he wouldn't do it again. I don't believe it.
No, he just tried to slice off the minister's arm. No.
Right. So that's where I did the whole. So I don't know if that was like a bout of if they thought he was crazy, they can't put him to death. But I appreciate that that happened less than a month before they put his ass down.
I know this is a little bit of mental torture, but I kind of wish, you know how sometimes their death sentence gets prolonged or like their actual date. If the date that they were previously given, they get strapped to the chair or the table or whatever it is that their penalty, and then they're like, "Sorry,
They just said, just kidding, it's next week."
It's not today.
Yeah.
We'll do this again. This was just your
But
practice. Since he's all about the practicing.
Too was just like I rolled over his family being upset that he gets the death sentence, and I don't know what it's like to have a family member get a death sentence. However, they did what they did. It's called consequences. You don't get to say you're sorry. Alan cannot come back. What they did was incredibly wrong. They knew it was wrong.
I feel bad for the Mike feller. Only a little bit bad, okay? Because if the plan was to carjack this kid and crack him on the head, that's already messed up, okay? But to not know that the person you're committing this crime with is intending to murder him, then yeah, that kind of sucks.
But he didn't have to go to Del Rio with him. But then I suppose that could have been a case of now he thinks he's going to be wanted for murder as well, so they need to get out, so he could have been freaking out. But
I don't think it's even that far fetched. I no. I think it's more like what's done is done. I can't believe we just did this, and he rode the high of we just committed this crime. And then all of a sudden, when it's time to take fault, he's like, I didn't know nothing about it.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry for making fun of Alan. I feel like a shit, and I hate you, Claire. Thank you.
You should.
Hate you? I do. You son of a bitch.
That's what you get because you've done the same shit to me with you tell me a story, and I knew when I was writing it because I was like, dude, this is such a loss. Like, literally anything that you could hear about Allen, he was just a good person. He had nobody that had any beef with him. Like, and he wanted to help out. He wanted to be a good person. He wanted to do all the things that he could to not only be a good person on his own and successful in all of his goals, but just driven isn't the best word for him. But it really is a loss. But I thought it was awesome that not everybody who's murdered does an entire city manage to
Come
appreciate
together. Yeah.
and acknowledge, and not only just like a passive, we're going to put a plaque on this building, but
Or on a bench. Yeah.
even 25 years later they honored him. So
What year was how long did Juan sit in prison before he was executed? Did it coincide with the 25th?
no,
Okay.
he was killed in 2000, and then they did the 25th celebration thing in 2012. Although that would have been funny. We're throwing a party, he's dead.
Well, I was thinking more so that it didn't take away from the loss of Allen. They decided like the execution didn't overshadow.
Yeah.
But thanks for that.
That's how
Can't believe you set me up. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mind-fucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.